This is the Superpowered Mind podcast for inquiring individuals who are tired of the struggle for peace, happiness, and clarity. I'm Claire Diamond, ready to help you explore the principles of the mind, the self, and reality to unlock ultimate mental freedom. This podcast is the one to listen to if you're ready to experience the capabilities of the superpowered mind. Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 33. And today we've got a bit of a follow-up from last week's podcast. Last week we were looking at the brick wall. Today we're going into it in more depth by really seeing the difference between cause, symptom, and cure. And this is such a vital exploration for all of us, just in our own daily lives, and especially for anyone whose work or role or level of responsibility involves working with other people and helping them with their problems, whatever those problems are. Because it's so easy in an exploration about reality to dismiss or override or spiritually bypass the actual cause of the way someone is behaving or the experience that they're having, and essentially keeping them in a limbo, in a torture chamber, really, because we're not helping them get to what is actually going on. And in our family at the moment, we're experiencing a bit of a miracle, really, in relation to cause, symptom, and cure, thanks to an incredible development, really life-changing development in a drug for cystic fibrosis sufferers. And my sister was born with CF. It's a genetic disease that affects, it degrades the protein receptors in certain cells, which impacts the balance of salt and water, leading to mucus really not being controlled. And so the lungs fill up, the digestive system fills up. And when my sister was born, her life expectancy was 3. It rose to 16 when she was 11. Her whole life, it was clear that the only cure was a heart and lung transplant, which she had. And so her whole life, there was no cure. And so everything was about managing symptoms. And it's a truly horrible, horrible, horrible disease. And the way she endured and continues to endure and live despite those symptoms is just blows my mind every single day. And so really, at a time when she was at her worst, it was before she had her heart and lung transplant, a family friend who was a coach was visiting and suggested that maybe her symptoms were all in her mind. And this is someone just coming in really out of the blue, wasn't even close to that close to us, who had no idea about what my sister was coping with, what she was living with, how she was on oxygen, 23 hours a day, the things that she just wasn't able to do as a young adult because of this awful disease. And, what nonsense, how appalling that we think that we have the right to tell someone that their experience is imaginary. And so that's my first point, is that to use a conversation about reality to ignore or override or dismiss other people's experiences or the actual facts, the physical reality of someone's situation is really dangerous. And so that's the first thing. Let's not do that. Then the second thing is that what's happening now in the world of cystic fibrosis is that there's a drug called Kaftrio that has been developed, which actually targets the protein receptors in these cells, increasing their number, increasing their effectiveness. So the actual cause of cystic fibrosis is being directly affected. And what a miracle. And thousands of, especially children's, because it's largely a childhood disease because the prognosis is so awful, lives are being absolutely transformed from this medicine, this drug that's being developed to directly affect the cause. Well, cause and symptoms at the same time. And how great, how amazing is it that the human mind is capable of such levels of exploration and inquiry and moving through what was fully believed an impossibility to bring about a whole new frontier within an entire disease. So the cause, finding the cause and tackling the cause is everything. It's everything. In every single aspect of life, it's everything. Finding the cause means that the entire operation, the behavior, the focus, the systems, the capacity, the resources, all of it are directed at the issue. The issue isn't really the symptoms, even though the symptoms might be horrendous and might be incredibly life-limiting. Remaining at a symptom level is not ever the way to go. It's literally like we're standing in the kitchen with our hand on the hot plate and we're saying, "Ow, the pain, do something about the pain." And someone comes along with a painkiller drug for us to get rid of the pain. It might work temporarily, but until the cause is found, i.e. take your hand off the hot plate, all that happens is a lifetime of managing symptoms in which that management gets increasingly ineffective. The body gets used to whatever is being used to dull the experience, and more is required. It's ultimately ineffective. And this gets really interesting for us when we start to consider the cause, symptoms, and cure of the human experience, of what's going on in the mind, of the psychology of an individual, of the emotional experience, this sense of being. When there is an experience of being that is really out of line with a sort of feeling of rightness and settled and cohesion and authenticity and honesty and the possibility of immersion deeper and deeper into the world, a voice that is able to be heard and spoken. When the experience of being is out of line with that, what can easily happen is that the symptoms are addressed and the cause is just not even considered. Because that experience of being, when it's uncomfortable, when there's a narrative voice going on in the mind of how lacking we are or unworthy, there's a comparison with other people, there's an emotional experience that is horrible. There might be anxiety or depression, fear, might be deeply insecure. There might be this whole sense of lack and not being worthy. When the only focus is on getting rid of those symptoms, which it is in so many aspects of our lives, that's where the exploration stops. I feel anxious. I have to not be anxious. How can I get rid of these feelings? How can I switch off this inner negative narrative voice? So the intervention is only about the symptoms. There's not even any thought of where do they come from. And really, so much medicine and therapy and intervention is stopping at that level. No thought, not even relating it back to behavior. Like issues with depression, say, how can I get rid of the depression? oh yeah, I'm going to take this pill, but not even looking at things that would be causing that depression, and not even getting further back, let alone getting further back to the cause of the behaviors. But the behaviors themselves, I'm drinking way over the recommended limit of alcohol. I'm never getting fresh air. I'm never getting movement in the body. I'm never moving my eyes around away from this gaming computer screen. I'm never getting sunlight. I'm never hanging out with people who make me laugh. Even that alone would be a closer movement towards the actual cause of the depression. But instead, we stop at the symptom, get rid of this emotional state, and then just so that I can continue this lifestyle that is actually directly causal in these feelings. And what we can all start to consider is what's even before that? What is before the behavior? So we're asking what is causing when it's so clear and so obvious and so well known that the body needs fresh air, good nourishment, good hydration, movement, that the mind and sense of being needs companionship and good friendships, good interactions with other people. Why, when it's so obvious that that's required, is the behavior so opposite to that? And until we're asking those sorts of questions, we can't even hope to get to the actual cause of those depressive feelings, of that feeling of depression. And this is so interesting for us all now to, in our own lives, start to look at cause, symptoms, and cure. Because especially in this conversation about reality, there's a very real risk of either pretending that the symptoms aren't there. Oh, it's just in my mind. It's just my thoughts. I'm not really sad. I'm not really unhappy. And anyway, what is unhappy? What is insecurity anyway? We push it all away, or we're trying to address it by getting rid of it through some intervention that stops at that level of symptom. And then often these interventions, whether it's spiritual bypass or alcohol or numbing or drugs or whatever it is to switch off the emotional system or the psychological system, makes it worse. Often they increase the symptoms. There's a slight momentary relief while this drug or this bypass is working, but then in it comes back again more ferociously than ever. And it makes it clear our lives when they don't function is information. It's not information to shut off or shut up. It's information that is saying there is something out of alignment here. There is a lack of coherence. There's a lack of integrity, really, body, mind, understanding, integrity that is creating dysfunction. So the cause, when we're considering things like insecurity, a feeling of lack, anything related to fear, shame in particular, need, when there's this sort of desperate need, in all of those areas, it's so easy to allow the symptom to dictate the method. So for shame, for example, when I'm feeling really shameful, it looks like a relief can be found in hiding away, in not speaking, in not sharing what's going on with me, in being less and less visible, in pretending all the time that everything's fine. But all that does is create more isolation, more of a focus on the wrongness of me, more comparison with other people, less and less availability of other people's experience to see how normal shame is. And so the remedy for shame, the cure for shame, is increasing shame. And our entire lives can be held in that re-traumatizing circle where there's a momentary relief, but actually that relief leads to an escalation of the symptoms. And so then we need more of that same relief. And for all of these things, which are symptoms of a sense of being, they are indications that the sense of what I am is wrong. There's something in my being that is wrong. And these symptoms of fear, anxiety, depression, need, insecurity, lack, they are information about that fundamental cause. And that's it. That's what's going on with these things. So we don't address those symptoms. We don't try and get rid of that vital information that is so helpful to showing the mind what's really going on. We say, oh, that's interesting. So in this situation, when there is this stress and there is this feeling of survival going on within me, there's this feeling of, who am I without this that's being so confronted and challenged? How this, my life and death is on the line here. In those moments, holding out to have the feelings and to allow the mind to see what is actually happening here, what is actually at stake, what's actually under threat. And only in that way does the actual cause of a dysfunctional experience of life start to be revealed. And that actual cause is an unquestioned idea that what we are is a independent, separate, choosing and deciding and doing entity that is living in an independent, objective, separate reality. That's the cause. That's the fundamental misunderstanding, the fundamental conditioned belief system that is so illogical, so easily disproven, and yet it runs the show. And because it is so out of alignment with the actual truth of what we are, and because all the time the mind is trying to find its way back to truth, back to its known sense of wholeness, its known sense of peace, of happiness, of integrity. And this mind, from that fractured space, from that erroneous belief system, is trying to control emotions, trying to control experience in other people in order to reclaim what it knows it is, and it can't do it. And that's the cause. That's the fundamental cause. And in the same way that when the scientists, the medical researchers discover or develop this drug, Kaftrio, that it radically changes, completely revolutionizes the lives of cystic fibrosis patients. This getting to the cause of the dysfunctional sense of being, rather than stopping at symptoms, rather than switching off the actual useful information that is saying there's a cause of this. There's a cause here to be looked at, to be seen and understood. Then all our lives transform. The entire world transforms. The whole of reality transforms. And not in any way through bypass or denial, through getting to the actual root cause of what is going on. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Lots of love. Bye. Thank you for listening to Superpowered Mind with me, Claire Diamond. If you want extra support in the exploration of your mind, download our exclusive subliminal recording, especially for podcast listeners, on bit.ly/podcast subliminal.